All right. Should I start?
Absolutely.
What do I want? It's a tricky question that we all sometimes struggle with. And if it's already difficult to answer that question for ourselves, it doesn't get any easier if we have to figure out what another person, let's say a client or a prospect, actually wants or needs. This is the 20-minute Attorney Business Development Podcast. My name is Toby Steinemann, and here with me to discuss how to figure out a client's needs is the man who always knows what he wants, Bill Burns.
Oh, Toby, if it were only that easy. But today it is easy, because what I want today is I really want to know what your practical tips are to get clients to tell you what they really want.
Well, let's see if we can figure out something together here. Last time we actually talked about the importance of a client's needs in terms of business development versus the traditional legal marketing. But usually the problem is that people don't wear signs around their necks that say, okay, this is what I want and this is what I need. But there are things you can do to figure out these wants and needs. And I think there is one important distinction that we have to make, that distinction being whether you're talking to an actual client that you already have an existing relationship, or whether if you're talking to a prospect where this relationship is not there yet. So you have to build that kind of trust first for them to actually engage in a conversation with you about their wants and needs. But it's not an easy thing to gain a client's trust, I guess.
No, it takes time. It takes effort. You have to spend a lot of time, and a lot of attorneys don't have that time because they have the pressure of the billable hour, the current client demands, plus trying to have a life outside of work. Often business development comes in pretty far down the list, but you need to invest that upfront time.
Is that why they have you? Because they don't have the time, so you can help them.
Absolutely. That's what I do every day. Maybe let's talk first about just a prospect. Just starting with doing the homework, that dreaded word, homework. A little preparation goes a long way, but there are tools you can use to answer what I call the 3 no's. That's KNOW, not NO, as in a negative. Know their business, know their industry, and know their market, know their competitors. And just that attitude and that approach can set you up for a much better conversation.
So is that what the preparation is actually all about, right? So that when you are at the point where you actually have the meeting, that you're able to engage with a client in a better way. You're able to demonstrate that you care, that you were willing to invest at the time in advance to get to know the client's surroundings and dealings.
Yeah, you can comment on a new product that they've released. You can ask, how is that going so far? Or you can talk about a new geography, a new market that they've entered, and ask them about that. Those are all great conversation starters. But the way to get those conversation starters is to do some research in advance.
So what kind of homework do you give your attorney? So I imagine they come to your office, or you come to their office, or now these days it's all in Teams. And then you go through a list of potential clients or existing clients, and then you give them some sort of tasks that they have to do.
Well, first, Toby, I always go to their office, or do it on Teams if it's remote. But I always go to their office. I think you have a better conversation in the situation where they're most comfortable. And I do, there's a lot of research tools that we can use. I advise them to spend some time looking at the company's website. I, offer to set up a media link that will grab news stories about the company and send them to them, or a link to other legal research tools that will tell them about new cases that are filed against the company. I also advise them to use LinkedIn, and you can use LinkedIn in a lot of different ways. A lot of people tend to use it as a tool to market themselves, but LinkedIn has a lot more power if you think about it as a research tool.
And also as a networking tool, right? I mean, that's basically the purpose it was set up to do, basically allowing you to have these connections outside of your physical space, your city, your town, and the places that are accessible. You can actually now create relationships and connections with people from everywhere.
Toby, how do you feel about using LinkedIn to approach someone that you don't know? Do you think that works?
I think it works very, very well. It always depends a little bit how you do it. I never accept any connection requests from people I don't know and who haven't sent me any note giving me a reason to get to know them. So whenever I reach out to someone and try to establish a connection with the intention of having a follow-up physical meeting at some point, I do that by sending them a note and telling them also why I'm sending them a note. I think that's basically the important part. And if there is a good reason, usually that works very well.
You can also use LinkedIn to find out if there's someone else who has that connection and can make the introduction for you. I was recently in a meeting with two partners who were interested in connecting with the new general counsel at a company that the firm had been following. And during the meeting, I went on LinkedIn and noted that a third partner in the firm was linked to this individual. So I called her up afterwards. Turns out that they worked together very early in their career. They've continued to be friends. Their families get together, and she was more than willing to make an introduction for these two partners who provide a service that she doesn't provide.
And that person that you were connected to, did this person appreciate that she reached out to them?
Absolutely. It was great. It worked out. They had a great meeting and they're having continuing discussions.
So it's a big loss if you don't do this kind of research work. If you know a little bit more about the client or the decision maker itself, it will give you a head start in terms of getting them to a point where they actually tell you the juicy stuff.
Absolutely. You can ask much better questions.
I mean, industry events is also something that is an important way of, or could be a useful way to actually prepare for meetings, right? Last week, actually, I was at the conference where there were a lot of lawyers, and when they hear I do marketing for law firms, they always think that I'm there to gain business, and obviously that would be nice, but it's not necessarily the main reason why I go there. The main reason why I go there is because I want to know what it is that they're up to, what it is that concerns them, the challenges they're facing, and that's what I spend my time in the conversations with, not telling them about what it is that we can do and what it is that we want to help them with.
Well, and it sets you up to have the kind of conversation where they share what their needs are. Then you can talk about yourself, your capabilities in that context. And all of a sudden, it's a lot more relevant to the person who's listening rather than someone just walking up to someone and saying, hey, I'm an M&A attorney, and let me tell you about how great I am at mergers and acquisitions. Never mind whether you need that or not. So yeah, it makes a big difference.
So when we have these marketing projects with law firms, in the beginning we always ask them, okay, what is it that you want to achieve with this kind of project? And one thing that quite frequently comes up is, okay, we want to improve our marketing with existing clients because they know that there's a lot of business to be done there. And one thing, and here I'm quite interested in what you think, if that's something you also do maybe, is that we tell them, okay, let's take a couple of lawyers of your team, look for your top clients and go sit with them in their surroundings, visit them, show them that you are willing to spend time off the clock investing in that kind of relationship, getting to know them, and let them explain to you their kind of business, the challenges they have, and just give them a space to actually present their business to you, and then ask clever follow-up questions, not because you're targeting a specific project, but because you want to gain information and intelligence. Is that something you do as well in your firm?
Absolutely. And we do two different variations on that. One is we encourage attorneys to do lunch and learn sessions where you go in and take lunch to them at their location and present on a specific topic. And the advantage there is that usually there's going to be additional people invited into the meeting who are either on the legal side or the business side of the business. And it's great to have more relationships. But secondly, because you're having a conversation with just one company, unlike being at a conference where there are multiple companies, this is a place where they can really share insights about what's going on specifically in their company. And often it leads to conversations that are about a topic different than the one we set out to talk about in the lunch and learn.
So what do you tell them in advance when you say, okay, we're gonna bring sushi and two lawyers, and then we're gonna show up at your conference room? Or is it like there's a prepared agenda and these are the things that we want to cover?
Usually it comes out of a conversation with the client about a need that they have or about something that's developed in the industry or just in business in general, a topic that has become that is raised to the level of importance for everybody. So we just make the offer to come in. Usually that's really appreciated because a lot of lawyers and companies, they don't have that type of opportunity to really dive down on a specific topic and learn more.
And it's about the duration of a lunch. So it's one and a
Yeah,
half, 2
it's an
hours.
hour. It's an hour.
Okay.
You tell them we'll be in and out in an hour. And usually people can find an hour. We do the same thing. We do a thing called client listening meetings where we'll identify a client, go talk to the responsible attorney, have that attorney reach out to the client and offer to have the firm's managing partner and me as the business development executive go and have a 1 hour meeting with that client to ask them about the service they're getting from our firm. Those conversations have turned into tremendous opportunity. Clients like to be asked about the service they're receiving. Every one of those, I believe, has strengthened our relationship with those clients.
But you do this without the actual attorney working this client, right?
That's correct. And not every attorney's, feels really good about that. Some people we have to talk to into it. Some people are very resistant because they fear something will be exposed that they don't want anyone else to know about. But to be honest with you, we've never run into that.
I mean, the attorney working on that project, I assume will get the intelligence gained from these meetings afterwards. So I think it's also beneficial to them if someone has these conversations.
Absolutely. We always do a debrief with the attorney.
I would love to have someone to go to my clients and have these kind of conversations and then afterwards tell me about it. I mean, that would make my life a whole lot easier because I could focus on other things. But yeah,
Toby, I'm happy to jump on a plane and fly to Switzerland. Every one of these conversations, we've gotten very positive feedback. And we've also learned about what other firms are doing for these clients that they'd like to receive. It's given us new ideas about how to improve our service.
So it wasn't about a client complaining about your attorneys. It was more like, okay, just getting suggestions, what they have experienced from other firms or even ideas they had.
Absolutely. It's just creating that dynamic where the individual feels like they've been asked, they have this opportunity. How often do people really have an opportunity to say, hey, this is the type of service I really want? And to say it to people that they believe are really going to make those changes. Often it's an opportunity for them to learn more about the other services that the firm offers that they weren't aware of. So every single one has been positive. Every single one has resulted in more opportunity. I really encourage firms to do it because I think it's invaluable.
For us, this wasn't as successful. I think a lot of firms in the beginning they want to do more marketing for existing clients, but then they're not really following through with this. I mean, most of the firms here they don't really do regular satisfaction surveys. So I think that is also something that already tells you that these kind of conversations aren't really happening to an extent that could be useful to them. I think it's a time problem, like with every business development activity. And the second point is they don't want to annoy the client. So they think they already have enough information about what the client actually wants, and then just assume that if they do the work that they get sent to them, then that's just fine.
But the problem there is that's really a transactional point of view. You don't want to be seen in that light. You want to be seen as a counselor and advisor, not just someone who checks the box and gets an assignment, finishes an assignment. It's easy to replace somebody who's viewed as transactional. Oh, I can get somebody else to do that. But once you've developed the type of relationship where you're having the conversations, you're asking the questions about a client's needs and its objectives and goals and challenges, that's when you have the type of relationship that lasts over time. And really, if you think about how much you invest in getting a client, you want to get as most out of that relationship as you possibly can.
And also, I mean, if you just do the work that a client actually throws your way, then like you said, it's reactional, but you also don't necessarily work on a client's needs because they sometimes don't even know what it is that they actually need. But if you would understand all of that, you would be able to provide much better strategic advice and be of better use to them than if you just react to what they actually throw your way.
Absolutely. And look at it this way from the individual's point of view, just the individual attorney's point of view. You get to do more sophisticated work. more interesting work, and you get to gather experience that you wouldn't otherwise have that you can market to other clients. So there's tremendous value in having those conversations because it just elevates your game.
Another point that is important probably here in that area is the whole technology shift now that we have with artificial intelligence, because obviously, I mean, one thing is how law firm use that internally, but then another thing is how the client uses that, right? So a lot of this knowledge-based work is supposedly done by artificial intelligence. And I mean, even companies with big legal departments probably have these kind of tools at hand and will grow their investment in terms of technology. So positioning yourself in a more strategic way makes sense. And if we're talking about figuring out what it is that a client wants or needs, you also have to understand how they use these kind of tools. So sitting down with them and actually talking about these kind of things, how far they get with artificial intelligence and where they still struggle, what kind of useful advice you can actually still provide in the age of AI, is I think it's essential. And so when you have these conversations, how do you figure out what is actually a want or a need of a client? Is that a conversation or a conclusion that a lawyer is able to do in your view, or is it something that maybe a senior business development professional is required to do, or even a managing partner?
All of the above can do that. Everyone can have that kind of conversation. I think it's important to go back to the point we made in the first podcast about active listening. Can't emphasize enough that when you're with clients or prospects, your job is to ask really good questions and to listen very carefully to what they say, to listen for what's different. When they say something that's different, that's where the opportunity is to find work. That's where the opportunity. That's where they're starting to express a need. So active listening, asking good questions, having that view that it's going to take a long time to develop trust in a relationship. Toby, you talked about the investment of time. A lot of times people get impatient because they have a meeting, they have a lunch, they have a good discussion, but nothing comes of it. But sometimes it's controlled by other factors. We just this week had a company come back to us. We had met with them 10 months ago, talked very specifically about a potential project, followed up, kind of felt like we were ghosted, but they contacted us this week. They're ready to go. They got sidetracked by some other matters that were going on internally, and they thanked us for continuing to try to follow up. So these things take time, and they don't always happen immediately.
Yeah, and it is about gaining information, right?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously there are times when the client's going to come to you because they have a need, because something happened, and they have a need that you need to fill in a very short term. But a lot of the opportunity is the stuff that's going on that they aren't talking about, that is not immediate, that has more of a long-term impact, or the issues that they don't think you're, in terms of your firm or the individual attorney, being able to address, and they don't know that you have those capabilities. So it's important to have those kind of conversations on a regular basis, not all the time, but what's wrong with an annual checkup to just see how the relationship is going. So Toby, as we wrap up, what do you think the main takeaways are today?
One thing that is important across all things that you do to figure out what it is that a client wants or needs is that you're willing to invest. So before you actually start meeting a client, invest time to actually do the research, follow the relevant people, try to connect with the companies, and then when you're actually engaging with the clients, shouldn't be like in a sales meeting where you're trying to get a new project from every interaction that you have, but it should be about showing genuine interest in their business and their actual challenges and help them to reach their objectives that they have as a company or as a team. And if you are willing to show this kind of investment, then the client will also be open to a conversation about what it is that keeps them awake at night. And this is the kind of juicy information and intelligence that you need as a lawyer in order to then provide them with a good offer.
But you can have great conversations like that, but they don't always turn into immediate business. And I think sometimes we're afraid to drill down too much to find out what objections there are and how to really close the sale. Maybe next time what we ought to do is talk about, once you've gotten to having those really insightful conversations, what do you do to take it to the next step to really translate it into business?
Sounds very good. Let's do that.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Bill, for today, and see you next time.
Toby, thank you as well. Take care.